As she said, my name is Anna Prince, but I'm actually the principal at Louisa East Elementary, and we are grades 2 through 5. I have two teachers with me today. Ms. McClanahan teaches 4th grade math, and Mrs. Kingsmore teaches 4th grade ELA. So today we're going to talk to you about our system of formative assessments that we worked on this year through the ACT grant. With Louisa East, we have found in all of Lawrence County School District that over the past years, we have been introduced to several different research-based instructional strategies. And throughout the years, we've got all these different things in our toolbox, but we need a way to refine those and really make those good so that we can see increased student achievement. So this year, we focused on formative assessments, which will lead to personalized instruction, and that's needed in our school district to ensure academic success for all students. This is our theory of action. We looked at the different ways that teachers, principals, and our district community partners could help us throughout this process. So teachers are starting to work on their micro-credentials, and based on their professional growth plan, they're looking at different micro-credentials that are offered to see whether it might be something in formative assessment that they can build their skills, or student engagement. Our long-term goals are to increase success by engaged learners, accelerating students, having transition-ready students, and lifelong learners. Some of the things that we have purchased so far are, we spent $1,400 in classroom supplies, and that was things like chart paper, markers. We surveyed teachers to see what they would use most for formative assessments. They use a lot of chart paper, of course, for anchor charts. They use sticky notes. They're always running out of dry erase markers, so we felt it would be good to get those back into the classrooms. We have 35 teachers in our school. It's a very large school, so this money went a long way with us because we only do have $100 stipends for their classrooms each year. We also spent money to purchase a GoPro, and I've been able to use that to go into classrooms and to video teachers using these instructional strategies, and then come back and share those with other teachers who are struggling maybe with student engagement, or for new teachers who are just starting. I'm able to show them some skills. Because of our planning in such a large school, it's hard for them to use their class time to go observe another teacher. So the GoPro has helped me to just show the videos or to email those videos to those teachers. And then the other little picture there is for the micro-credentials.
All right. One of the tools that Mrs. Prince has brought back to us from KVEC was our Observe Me tool. And we've been encouraged to use these outside of our classrooms in order to kind of ask for help. We have certain goals that we set in our classrooms, things that we would like feedback on. So this is just an example of one of the Observe Me tools we have outside. And then we invite people to come into our rooms and maybe give some feedback, positive things we can work on, and we supply another feedback form for them to give to us also. But we have, like, how are my students engaged in the lesson assignment? How are the students collaborating? Does my questioning foster critical thinking? So, but each teacher has this, and it's based on their own personal goals that they have met, that they've made for them. Another thing that we have implemented is the Kagan strategies. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but we started implementing these last year, and one of the strategies that I use a lot in my math classroom is a rally coach. So in our classrooms, we have posters to kind of help our kids to remember the steps of being a good coach. You know, we talked about Calipari and how he has to rally his players just like in the classroom. But we pair them strategically at our tables. We do have dry erase tables, which we were able to use our money for the markers to, the kids love using those with math especially, but they're groups of 4, so the mats can help us strategically place the students to partner them, and then therefore they're given activities to do. And they are responsible for not only working on a problem, but then their coach can ask them questions that can foster more higher level thinking or different strategies, and then they take turns with that. And they have to agree If a student doesn't agree with what his or her partner, how they worked out their problem, then they can debate that and they can talk to each other. So it really implements the collaborative learning aspect to this. But that's just something we use in our classroom.
Okay, let's see. Another strategy that we've used this year is called quiz trade. That's another Kagan strategy that we learned through our PLCs. So quiz trade is just a quick formative assessment. I usually set a timer for about 10 minutes. I don't spend longer than that on it. But the thing about quiz trade is that it takes the load off of the teacher and it puts it on the students. So the students are responsible to teach one another. For example, the last one I did was with figurative language. My students had a card, and on the back was a question that might have said, what type of figurative language is this? And on the front might have been assembly. So the students had to quiz each other about what type of figurative language it was. And the big thing about that is the use. You have to give them something to go by. So we have a lot of anchor charts in our classrooms. If you walked in mine, you'd probably be like, get me out of here, because there's just too many. But they use the anchor chart to refer back to if they're not sure of the answer, and then they coach each other as they go. So after that, the students trade cards, and instead of waiting on everybody in the class to finish, they just go ahead and find a new partner so that we're not wasting time, and that in that 10 minutes, they're really getting a lot of learning in. And this is probably my favorite strategy that I've used this year. It's called a consensus map. I've also called it stick it together. So the students use this on their own. For example, I gave my students a passage and they had to close read it and find the main idea of the passage on their own. Once they found it on their own, when everybody finished, they stuck it on their consensus map, and then they had to agree on what the correct main idea was. So it really helps struggling learners if they're having trouble. Those higher learners can help them out and become the teacher, and they're really able to see how their classmates think. But once they find it on their own, they come up with the main idea together and put it in the middle. And they have to explain to each other how they determined the main idea, why they thought that was the main idea, and then come up with one together. And usually after they do this, I have them share as a class in their group what main idea they came up with, how they got their answer. It's just a really great tool to see how the students perform individually, and then it lets them collaborate together to see how each other thinks.
We also have teachers who have students now setting goals for their common assessments. That's something that we're looking at, not just giving the kids a test and then passing back their grade, but trying to set goals for each assessment that they're given. And that way they know what they're aiming for to be a proficient student. They are also using their common assessments. After they're given to them, they go back and look at those that they have missed and take Post-it notes and mark why did they miss that. They analyze their problems. So they're using their common assessments now as a formative assessment to go back and reteach that. Not just here's your grade and now let's go on to the next concept. Well, I did have results on here, but our results are based on our walkthroughs. When I was walking into the classrooms, honestly, this is my first year as a full principal. Last year I started in December. So when I would walk into classrooms, I would see a lot of collaborative working. And that was turn and talk to your partner about whatever the concept is they're teaching. And it was just discussion back and forth. And then they would say, okay, raise your hand. Who can tell me? Now we have individual data. By using the consensus map or the rally coach, students have to do their individual work first, then turn and talk to a partner, and then they justify their answers together to come up collaboratively with the correct answer. So they're able to talk back and forth and really come to a consensus on what is the right answer. So my walkthrough data shows that students are engaged, that they are actually gaining more information to guide their teaching for next steps. In our next steps as a school, we're going to continue to go through our instructional strategies. We use the gradual release model in Lawrence County, where we move from I do, we do, you do. I think it's the more common term for everyone, a focus instruction into the independent stage. So we're going to refine that still in order to increase student overall academic achievement.